So let's talk about The Lord of the Rings. It's one of my favorite movie series of all times. It's something I watch over and over again. And I think there's a few nonprofit ideas kind of couched within that movie and within how those movies were made. And here's what I'm talking about. Peter Jackson, the guy who directed the movies and co-wrote the movies, in one of the director's commentaries, he was talking about how they made decisions in terms of things that appeared in the books by Tolkien, what appeared in the books, and what would get translated into the movies, because the movies aren't a one-to-one representation of the books. There's things that are changed, there's things that are left out, there are things that are brought in. And how did they make that decision? Well, Jackson says that the decision was made based on how does this item, how does this story element, how does this character beat, how does this scene relate to the main thrust of the movies, which is Frodo getting the ring into Mordor. So if they were talking about a character and that character didn't have much with the story of the ring, they may cut that character or combine that character or leave that character out. And always bringing the conversation back to that one question. What does this tell us about the quest to destroy this ring? What are we learning as a viewer of the movie? What are we learning about this quest? It's going to help us understand it. It's going to help us stay engaged and drawn into the story. And if something doesn't meet that criteria, even if it might be something that was well received or well read or very exciting, it would still get cut. Now, what does this have to do with the nonprofit space? I think about this anecdote a lot when I think about building clarity in fundraising. When I talk about building clarity in fundraising, I mean kind of exactly what you think I mean. Let's get a really clear-eyed, unobstructed view of what we need to do in order to get the results that we actually want to get. And the things that sometimes stop us from having that clear view are things like, well, we've got conflicting reports, conflicting information about what fundraising trends we should follow. We might be avoiding a certain fundraising practice because it might cause us to be anxious or afraid, right? I talked about this last week about picking up the phone and calling donors. Well, if you're afraid to do that or not willing to do that, you're going to rely on other channels, and that may not be as effective. Or, and this is, I think, even the most common, sometimes things that worked in the past get kind of locked in, and this sense of tradition overrides any sense of strategy, and you start hearing things like, well, we've always done it this way, or all of our donors expect us to do this thing in this way, and we can't change that. So all those things kind of come into play and can really stop us from focusing on what's really important. So in Jackson's movie, it was, what is the story of the ring and the destruction of the ring? In our fundraising story, it might be, what are actions we can take to build a stronger relationship between a donor and the organization? Or what are actions we can take that make donors feel connected and heard in a way that supports our mission? Whatever it is, there's probably one thing you're really trying to achieve with your fundraising program. And asking the questions to help us get to the heart of those things is an important step into building that fundraising clarity. Because once you have clarity, once you know, like, if the name of the game is donor retention, then, oh, okay, that means I need to really make some positive and strategic steps in my stewardship work. I want to make sure we're sending our acknowledgments quickly, but following those up with really meaningful messages of gratitude, and using different channels to do that, and measuring the effectiveness of those things, because I know those are all activities that lead to donor retention. So it's not about whether one thing is right or wrong, or better than something else, or worse than something else. It's really all about, is this activity serving the objective we want to achieve, the results we want to achieve? And clarity helps you see those things. Another thing that gets in the way of clarity, like I said, it's that idea that traditions are super important. I won't dwell, there's probably a whole longer video about this in my future, but I'll just say for now, when you are in a leadership role in a fundraising engine, either as a staff member, as the team leader, whatever it is, listen for and be aware of any sort of absolute statements, right? Statements that sound like, all of our donors want it this way. None of our donors want this. We have always done it this way. This is the way we know it always works. Now, I say beware of those. I don't say reject all of those out of hand, but because sometimes it is true. You may be like, hey, we've got 15 years of research that tells us our donors really love this event or really love this thing. Our, our retention rate, if we keep doing this, seems to grow, so we're going to keep doing it. That's fine. But oftentimes, those phrases are really just kind of standing on their own. There's not a lot of supporting evidence or supporting weight. And if we start to look at those stories start to crumble a little bit. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to have those stories crumble. And again, if you're in a leadership role, if you're a board member or an executive director, you want to be encouraging that kind of conversation because you want to make sure you're doing the thing that's going to get the best results time and time and time again. And if you're doing something that's not getting you the results you need, if you're engaged in activities that's not going to bring the ring to Mordor, then eventually you have to ask yourself, well, why are we doing these things? So clarity is something I strive for. It's something I really work with my coaching clients on, help them have that clarity of point of view. And one of the advantages of working with a coach is you get someone who's connected with you, but not necessarily emotionally invested in your mission. I don't work for you or with you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to unlock what you've got inside. But I'm, to put it bluntly, I'm not afraid. I have very little stake in the game. So sort of something that's held really dear, I might be able to point at and say, hey, are we sure this is the thing we want to do? How are we sure we're working on that? Those are all sort of the ways we're going to get to clarity. And it's a little muddy sometimes because it varies from situation to situation and it varies from individual to individual and organization to organization. I don't believe there's a single absolute Platonic ideal of fundraising, but I do believe there's always a way to get clarity around the actions we're taking. And a lot of that, again, starts with being really clear about our vision, being really clear about what we want to achieve, and being willing to ask the questions to make sure we're doing the work that really, really matters. If you'd like to learn more about coaching with me and how I can help you and your organization raise more and do more for your mission, you can respond to this message or visit me at resolutephilanthropy.com and we will go from there. If you're in Washington State, I'll also say I'm presenting at 2 upcoming conferences in April and in May. I'll put details about those conferences in the comments to this video, and I hope to see you all there. So keep up the great work. We'll talk to you soon.